When I look back at the beginning of my career, I see now that freelancing has probably been the best decision that I've made so far, be it for money, freedom, 9 to 5 opportunities, internship opportunities, challenge. All of those things came because I started freelancing. And so I now believe that freelancing could probably be the greatest move that you can make for your own career. And so in this video, I've made a list of the 5 reasons of why I personally freelance and why I think you should also freelance. All right, so here's my list of the 5 reasons why I think you should freelance. And I want to start with the first point here, which is money. All right, money is probably the most important reason why a lot of people freelance. And the simple reason is, as a freelancer, you'll be making maybe 2x, 3x the amount of money that you'll make as an employee. Even if you're a beginner, all right, I started freelancing for free. And so it went from 0 when I started freelancing. And then at every single contract that I had, I made more money. So maybe the second contract, I asked for $10 an hour. And then the third one, I asked for $20 per hour. It's not exactly the numbers, I don't even remember, but I know that's what I did, kind of an incremental thing. At the beginning, you'll be making much less money compared to a 9 to 5. So it's gonna look something like this. So if this is the money that you make from employment, right? And that's basically the money here that you make as a self-employed or as a freelancer. It's gonna be much lower at first, and like that's the graph like this. It's going to be much lower at first, and as an employee you'll be making much more in the beginning, because the time you'll invest as a freelancer when you have no skills is going to be disproportionate compared to the money that you're making. So it's going to be hell probably in the beginning, but it's fine because eventually you'll be making much more money as an employee. And that's kind of what I've experienced personally. I started making like peanuts, and the time that I was investing was crazy. And the people around me was telling me like, bro, why are you working so much for nothing? Like I remember I made a website, like a crazy e-commerce for a grocery store during COVID, and I did it for like $1,000 and it took me like 300 hours. Like, so if we do the math, like I made absolutely no money off of it. But now I make way more money freelancing than any job that I could have as a programmer. So really, it's basically that curve here. Okay, then I want to talk about freedom and great future outlook, because it's quite related to the money point. And the first reason, the first sub point here, because I think there are 2 main points here. The first one being schedule, all right? So when you freelance, you're on the schedule that you choose. You can work in the morning, you can work at night, you can work on the weekends, right? First of all, it's a great thing to be able to work whenever you want, all right? If you haven't experienced it, it's really nice. But the best thing in my experience that's really nice about doing your own schedule is that you can, for example, I like to hike. What I could do is go hike during the week and then work my freelance contract during the weekends. And so that way I have the mountains for myself. I can climb the mountains and the place won't be crowded because everyone else is working and I'm on like a different schedule than them. Also, if you, for example, take the plane and go on vacation abroad, right? Your plane ticket will cost much less money, since you can basically choose to go on a downtime and leave like during like the high seasons when everyone is on vacation. You can work during that time, right? And so those are just 2 examples of why scheduling can really be nice as a freelancer. But the other point that I think is much more important is that it has a great future outlook, all right? And what I mean by that is, if we take a look at the state of our economy, and this sounds really cliche, but if we take a look at how the world is slowly becoming globalized, like how many of you guys have been like, or are working from home right now? I'm sure more than 50% of you have at least worked from home once, all right? When I was younger, that thing didn't really exist, like work from home. Like it was something much more rare than I see now, which is now something, it's now something that's really normalized. And I think it's since COVID, now companies are like much less shy of letting workers work from home because they've experienced it and they saw that their profits didn't go down. And so now they're much more cool with that. And so I think that just like propulsed the movement of like the gig economy. And I think freelancing is a great build for that context. And as time goes on, it's even going to be better for us freelancers. So those are 2, I mean, it's not scheduled here. And so yeah, those 2 reasons are a great perk of freelancing. And actually, I think I can add another point here. I don't know if it fits more with money, but I want to talk about it right now. And I don't know if you've seen or if you've read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. All right. It's not the best book, but I've read it. And there's something that I've learned that's quite interesting. It's this quadrant. Some of you guys may know it. And it's this quadrant. It goes E, S, and then here is B, and then here is I, all right? And those are the 4 quadrants, or like the 4 paths, or like the 4 skill tree that you can choose in your life. And most people are right here, which is the employee quadrant. And then here you have self-employed, that would freelancing would fit in that. And then here you have business and investing. And my point with freelancing here is that freelancing, I believe, is a great bridge that if you have like some business ambitions, if you're interested in doing business, or if you're interested in becoming an investor and not necessarily staying an employee all your life, then I really see freelance as a bridge that can help go from being dependent on an income as an employee to then freelancing, and then to then moving on to business. And after that, you can do investing, right? So let's say you have some bills to pay. You have maybe $1,000 of bills to pay for your crib, for your car, whatever. And if all your money comes from working as an employee, then you can't really decide to quit and start doing business, because then it's going to be quite risky unless you save maybe a year or 2 on the side and you decide to live off of that. That's a method. Another method would be to start doing some freelance while you're an employee, and then you can start kind of reducing your dependence on the income of being an employee. And at some point you decide to quit being an employee and now you freelance full-time. And the great thing about freelancing is you can choose your own schedule. All right. And the great thing about that is you can then decide to scale down the number of hours that you work as a freelancer and invest that into a business. All right. And that's something that you can't really do when you're in that quadrant as an employee, because, well, simply you can't really scale down your hours, because most employers will ask you to work 30 to 35 to 40 hours a week. And so you can't really decide, hey, can I just work 20 hours because I want to invest time in my business? Like, most employers won't let you do that. And so, yeah, if you have some business ambitions, then I think freelance also has this perk for you. And now let's move on. We did the money aspect of thing. We did the freedom. So let's move on to the training ground now, which is something that's really important for you beginners out there. And that's because all of those great things that I've been talking about and other points here, you will only experience those points later in your career as a freelancer. When you start freelancing, you won't really have all or any of those perks. You'll just be working like a madman to try to do the contracts. But the perk, one thing that's good, is you're gonna learn so much, all right? And there's this thing that I see online that people learn how to code by doing like Twitter clones and Instagram clones or like Netflix clones, things like that. And that's how they learn how to code. And I think, in my opinion, it's quite a mistake. And what you should do instead, if you have the opportunity for it, and I think you should seek that opportunity because it won't come to you, and it's to find a real world contract with a real world client. All right. And those are fancy terms, but it can simply be a website for a friend. All right. It can be as simple as that. And I did plenty of those when I was learning. And that way you can actually have some real, like the same parameters that you would have in real life. Because a Netflix clone, all right, all you have to worry about is the technical aspect of things. And that's only one part of life. All right. There's a big part, which is dealing with another human, dealing with expectations, dealing with time constraints, things like that you'll never experience if you decide to do like a small, meaningless project like a Netflix clone. So yeah, freelancing, in the beginning, you won't make a lot of money, but I think you can learn a lot. And I learned by freelancing much more, 100 times more than I learned in school or learned on YouTube and all of that. Freelancing taught me the real world, and I think it's a great training ground in the beginning and even after, if you keep increasing the level of difficulty of your projects. That was basically it for training ground. Now I want to talk, we can talk about networking. I think networking, really underrated thing, and specifically because we're programmers, and I think I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm not the most social guy. I like to be by myself. I don't really like big parties and all of that. And that's why in the beginning of my career, I saw networking as like the worst thing ever. Like I saw it as a hassle, something that I didn't want to do. But now that I've experienced kind of the compounding effect of having a network, I see now that this is probably the most important thing that you can have. Like hands down, the biggest thing. If you can focus on it, you should focus on that. But everyone says that already, and you need to experience it a bit to see how great it is. And how it's related with freelancing now is that if you have some freelancing ambitions, business ambitions, then the quality of the network that you'll build while freelancing is going to be much higher than anything else. That's basically what happened to me. Like maybe I had here like 4 different people that I met from working and met from friends, and then I have 1 person that I met from freelancing. And this is maybe even higher, maybe 5 or 6. Like it's a 6-to-1 ratio, right? That person that I met while freelancing brought me way more opportunities than all of those people combined that I've met in parties or that I've met in 9-to-5 places. And the reason why is simply because it's simply because of ambition. It's simply because of what your goals are. And people in 9-to-5 don't necessarily have the goal to do freelance, right? That's why they work a 9-to-5, right? If they had ambitions to do freelance, they probably would be freelancing. But some of them do both, all right? Like me, for example, or like some people at my work. But yeah, the point is the quality of your network will be much higher in general when you meet people in freelance context. So that's basically it for the networking. Now, I want to move on to 9-to-5 negotiations. And I've been talking about ambitions of doing business and doing freelance and all of that. But what if all you want to do really is to have a normal job? You don't really care about doing business or becoming a full-time freelancer. You just want to have a comfortable job, but get paid your worth, right? Well, I believe freelancing is great for that. And the reason is, I think a lot of people are scared of negotiating their salary, all right? And I'll include myself in that as well. Like I get quite awkward when it's time to talk about money in like a job situation. I'm sure a lot of people like you have experienced that. Like the person will say like, you're worth, I will pay you 60K a year. But in your head, you want to get paid 80K a year. And I personally think it's really hard to approach that subject. It's kind of an awkward situation. And I think all of that is because of fear, all right? We're just scared. I think most of us are scared of asking for what we believe are our worth. And the reason is because we're dependent on the job for our income, all right? But when you start freelancing and you start becoming less dependent on the income of a job, then you don't really have this scarcity mindset inside of an interview. So you won't be scared, and that's what happened to me, of just asking for more. Because if the person in front of you says no, then you have a backup plan. Then you can be like, okay, that's fine. I'll go back to my freelancing, make money, and I'll find a job that's going to pay me my worth, right? So that's one reason. Another reason is in freelancing, what usually happens is you want to rack up your rates as time goes on. I think I've explained that graph like a minute ago, but let's say I start freelancing, and actually I've started freelancing at 0 here. My first contract was for $0 per hour. And then usually what you want to do and what people do is the next contract, then you'll ask for $10 per hour. And then the next contract after that, you'll ask for 20, etc. Then you'll ask for 30 until you reach the amount that you want, right? And this practice of being in front of someone and asking for like a $10 or like 20, 30, 40, whatever, the hike that you want to boost your rates, that practice is going to basically practice your muscle of being able to go outside of your comfort zone and just asking for more money in front of someone. Like, it's not something that's taught in school. It's not something that's taught like anywhere really, but it's an incredible skill, I believe, that can be practiced inside of freelance scenarios that you can then apply to a 9-to-5. And that's what I mean by 9-to-5 negotiation leverage. So yeah, that was basically it for this video, guys. I think I've went over everything here. And yeah, that was my 5 points, the reason why I think you should freelance as a developer. And yeah, if you learned something, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.